Welcome, ZASLOW Show 2.0. It is a Monday, the 15th of January. Good to have you aboard, part of the Believe Podcast Network, and presented as always by Anidjar and Levine, accident attorneys, 800-747-FREE, 800-747-3733. It is Martin Luther King Day, so if you're off of work today because of the holiday, I'm glad that you're still hanging out with us. I would say we're going to have a fun show today. I'm going to try and make it fun. I'm going to try and do my best. But man, we're starting off the week here after one of the most disappointing final few weeks and playoff exit in Miami Dolphins history. There's no sugarcoating it. What do you want me to say? So we're going to do the majority of the show today, obviously on the Dolphins. We got the Heat from last night. The Panthers play this afternoon. Heck, it's a 1 p.m. Panther game today. By the time you're listening right now, maybe the Panther game's over and you're saying to yourself, ZASLOW, the Panthers won. What are you talking about? You're in the future. I can't predict the future. Matter of fact, I think I might be going to the Panther game today, which I'm putting a lot on the line here. I'm 0-3 at Panther games this year. And all three of those games are against Western Conference teams. Vancouver, Winnipeg, St. Louis. Today, Anaheim. They suck. But they're a Western Conference team. So, I'm going to be really, I'm not going to know what to do myself if the Panthers lose today to a terrible Anaheim team. I might be a jinx if that's the case. I'm trying to end that, all right? So I'm going today. I'm hoping the Panthers get back in the win column after their 9-game win streak was snapped on Saturday afternoon against New Jersey. And I'm also hoping that my losing skid is snapped if the Panthers can get back in the win column today. There's a lot at stake here. There's a lot on the line. Now look, NFL playoffs are in full swing. Everybody knows that. NBA, NHL, BetOnline has you covered with all the up to the minute, all the up to the second odds, news, and scores. And with additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile versions, you can access the world's best wagering info anytime. Head there today. Get into the action. See all the updated odds. Remember, use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, and you're going to receive 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. So, obviously, we're starting off with the Dolphins disaster. Oh, man. So, there's got to be, I did ESPN yesterday, I did primetime, and I spoke about this yesterday. There's got to be buyer's remorse, right? All the bitching and moaning and the complaining throughout the week about having to order the game on Peacock. If you're local, you had the game on NBC6. If you're out of town, even if you're as close out of town as Palm Beach County, you got to order, you got to get the cock, all right? So you pay your $5.99 for Peacock. There had to have been buyer's remorse, right? Where you're annoyed enough. Now, I think the whole situation was overblown. But you're annoyed enough that you got to now pay for another service to get the channel that carries the Dolphin playoff game. You pay your $5.99. There had to be buyer's remorse. This game was horrendous. Now, most of Wild Card Weekend, we got two more games today. At 4:30 today, got Pittsburgh and Buffalo. 8:15 tonight, Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. And on paper, I feel like these are the two weakest games of the weekend. But nonetheless, so far, through 4 games, Wild Card Weekend's been terrible. You've had one good game, and it was a great game. Yesterday, Detroit, Los Angeles, fantastic game. I'm so happy for the Detroit fans. Oh my God. What do I care about Detroit? I don't give a fuck, but man, I was happy for those people. So, one good game so far this weekend. The other 3, blowout city. You had to have had buyer's remorse with getting Peacock if you paid for that Dolphin game. I got to tell you though, some of the old people. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to old shame, all right? But the game starts on Saturday. We're like 1 quarter in, half a first quarter in. I sent a text to my dad. He's Palm Beach County. I sent a text to my dad. Hey, you watching the Dolphins? He goes, no, I don't get Peacock. I don't understand. We're on such a strict budget. It's $5.99. But anyway, so I say to him, I go, all right, I'm going to send you my password. And you say the email and the password. Okay, fine. He has to then call me, all right, while he's trying to figure out, because explaining how to download this app and enter your username and your password. It's like I was explaining it to an alien. It's like he just landed here from Mars. He lives on Mars. And he just landed here and he doesn't know anything. He doesn't even know how to communicate with me. Trying to relay the information to him on how to get Peacock and watch the Dolphins. I was talking another language. It was like I was speaking to an alien. Eventually, he gets it. He gets it done. It's like, all right, good. All right, I'm watching now. I got the game. I'm watching on my computer. I go, what are you watching on your computer for? He goes, yeah, I don't get Peacock on the TV. Well, you could download the app on your television. Now I already got it on the computer. I'm just watching here on the computer, sitting at my desk. Okay. Anyway, so I hope everyone was able to figure out the whole Peacock situation. Look, yeah, buyer's remorse. I get it. Royal Rumble's in 2 weeks. WWE Network is on Peacock. Watch the Royal Rumble in a couple weeks, all right? Then you get your money's worth. So anyway, oh, man. So going into this game, for me, I felt it was going to be hard. Like, to me, this was dead team walking going into the game because my expectation changed throughout the season. Going into the season, making the playoffs back-to-back years for the first time in like a quarter century, and winning a playoff game. That's a successful season. But expectations change, right? The expectations change because we were having conversation at one point during the season. The team was 9-3 going into that Tennessee game, which we now know was the beginning of the end. But this team is 9-3, and they're either first or second in offense in the league, and we're talking about Super Bowl. And so if we're talking about Super Bowl, the expectations have to change. It's not just about making the postseason and winning a playoff game. It's about the Super Bowl. And so that's why, to me, this was dead team walking, because can they go into Kansas City and win? Yeah, I felt they could. That Chiefs team's not good. And you're going to find out next week how not good they are. But to me, it's not about winning that game anymore. It was about going to the Super Bowl. And with this defense just in shambles, they're dead team walking. They were not going to. If they got past Kansas City, that's it after that. They're not going to Buffalo and or Baltimore and winning a game in either of those venues. So this season was going to be very hard to save, in my opinion. But at least going into Kansas City, if they lost a tight game, it's all right. But the way that they lost, I don't see any other way to describe this season other than a massive failure. It's a failure from your original expectation, where they didn't even win a playoff game. Hell, at least host a playoff game. They didn't even win a playoff game. And now, considering the way it ended, we went from Super Bowl talk to one of the most bitter finishes to a season in Dolphins history. Think about it. I mean, 1999, Marino, 72-7 in Jacksonville. That's how the career ends. That's as bitter as it gets, right? This is right up there because of what the expectation was. See, that was about Marino's career ending, and that was in the divisional round. But that team wasn't a Super Bowl team. We all knew that wasn't a Super Bowl team. This is one of the most bitter finishes in the history of the Miami Dolphins. I don't know any other way to look at it. And it's one thing, like I said, it's one thing to get outplayed and lose to a better team. Kansas City isn't any good. And they're going to lose next week, be it in Buffalo or hosting Houston. Kansas City's going to lose next week. But, and I don't even want to hear about the defense. If you would have said before the game, hey, the Dolphins defense is going to allow 26 points to Kansas City, and I thought this was going to be a high-scoring game, despite the weather, I thought it was going to be a high-scoring game. The Dolphins were going to have to win a high-scoring game because their defense is going to give up points. And I thought the Dolphins were going to run the ball a ton and be able to run it against a Kansas City defense that's not great against the rush. The Chiefs scoring 26 points was not surprising to me. I would have pegged them actually to score a little bit more. The Dolphin defense in shambles did a fine enough job on Kansas City. Only allowing 26 points, to me, that's a game you could win. You got to win that game. And on top of those field goal after, what they have, 4 field goals? Bunch of field goals Dolphins defense gave up. That's a win right there. The defense, in the horrific shape they were in going into this game, the defense actually did a job. They allowed you to stay in that game. I mean, it was 13-7 forever. And then it was 19-7 forever. Like, the defense allowed you to stay in that game. We went from an all-time great offense to sheer incompetence. That's what we were watching on Saturday night. It was total incompetence. And the QB, who you know I like a lot, the QB has to take a lot of the blame. He couldn't do anything on Saturday night. He did nothing. I know a lot of people want to blame the coach as well. There's plenty of blame to go around. But the QB has to take a ton of blame. And you know my biggest criticism with Tua. And like I said, I'm a Tua guy. My biggest criticism with him, you have to be able to make magical plays every now and then. And in adverse situations, like Saturday night, can Tua make off-script plays? There was the one play that he ran for a first down, right? Although he didn't even stick the ball out, didn't dive or anything, and it ended up being 3rd and inches. He didn't make it. It's little plays like that. And I'm just talking about him using his legs. But when he scrambles out of the pocket and he has to improvise, he doesn't make those magical plays. We saw Josh Allen does. Even when Josh Allen's having a terrible game, Josh Allen does. We've seen Mahomes, obviously. Mahomes does it. Tua doesn't make those plays. I saw yesterday, I was told this, I didn't know this. I was hosting ESPN Radio Primetime yesterday, and I was told that on the season, Tua has run for 6 first downs. 6 first downs on the year. That's awful. Like, you need your quarterback to be able to run for a first down, I would say, once a game. At least once a game. 6 first downs Tua Tagovailoa has run for throughout the season. That's a problem. He isn't able to make those magical plays, and certainly isn't able to make those magical plays in adverse situations like Saturday night. Doesn't mean he's never going to be able to do that. No, I don't believe that. But right now, he has not shown us that he can do that. And that part is troublesome, especially through 4 years. 4 years now. He was the number 5 overall pick. And in 4 years, he has made 1 playoff appearance. He has no playoff wins. And we'll get to the contract situation. That's a very difficult spot that he has now put the team in. What are you supposed to do? 4 years, 1 playoff appearance, health concerns, although he passed that test this year, no playoff wins. What do you do about the contract? It's a really difficult situation. Now, the way that I remember you want to talk about how disappointing this year was, the way that I remember the 2003 season, and I've told you guys this, that was like the season of reckoning for me, where I realized, now it took a little bit of time after that, but I realized I need to change some things in my life as a sports fan. And it starts with the way that A, I react to the Dolphins losing, and B, how I let it affect the rest of my life. Because that 2003 season, to me, has always been the most bitter finish. The Dolphins were 10-4. They control their own fate as far as the number 1 seed in the AFC. If they win at Minnesota and at New England to end the season, number 1 seed, they get a bye. They lost to Minnesota late. They lost to New England late. Minnesota, Olindo Mare kicks the ball out of bounds. Vikings drive the field. They score. They win it. New England game, Fiedler, interception at the goal line. Bruschi, touchdown. Snow everywhere. And the Dolphins go from controlling their own fate, number 1 overall seed, to missing the playoffs entirely. For me, the most bitter way a Dolphins season has ever ended. The way that I remember the 2003 season, I will now remember this one as well. Now, I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm past that point in my life. And let me tell you a little secret here. if you're one of those like me, like I used to be, and there was a lot of you out there, you're living and dying with it, you're losing sleep, it is liberating not to have that Dolphin loss on Saturday night ruin my week. Maybe month. It is liberating. But the way that I remember the 2003 season is how I'm now going to remember this one. Although this is worse because these losses were a disgrace. Those games that I told you back in 2003, they were tight games. Dolphins ripped your heart out and they wind up, losing both those games. They don't even make the playoffs. But these losses were a disgrace. We watched this team fall apart over the last month of the season. And we know, of course, that it actually started with the Tennessee game. But these were losses of incompetence. They were incompetent and embarrassed themselves in Baltimore. They were incompetent and embarrassed themselves against Buffalo. They were incompetent and embarrassed themselves in Kansas City on Peacock. To me, that's why this is worse. These were losses of embarrassment and incompetence. Went from having control of your own destiny and the number one seed, not just losing, to being embarrassed 3 straight weeks. Like, I'm sitting there on Saturday. It was fun when Tyreek Hill scored the touchdown. It's 10-7. Awesome, we're in this thing. But from that point on, just sitting there watching bullshit. It was like early fourth quarter. At this point, I think we were down 26-7. I'm watching downstairs with my wife and with my son. I was so annoyed. And I'm like, I'm going to watch in bed. Anyone else coming? They're like, no, we're watching down here. Like, I'm going to watch in bed. I'll see you guys. I watched the fourth quarter of a Dolphin playoff game in bed. Like, normally, I got to be pacing in the ZASLOW Mansion family room. I'm into it. We're doing fist pumps and what have you. Although it's not like I have this long storied history of how I behave during Dolphin playoff games. They're few and far between. But to watch a playoff game of any kind, I'm watching in bed, flat on my back, sleeping on my sheets and giggles. Oh, my God. And by the way, what an idiot I look like. Talking about going into that Baltimore game. What was my MO? That whole week, I'm talking about Dolphins are one win away in Baltimore. They're 1 win away from 3 home wins away from the Super Bowl. That's right. Because if they won in Baltimore, all they got to do is win at home against Buffalo. You're the number 1 seed, at home divisional round, at home AFC championship round. The Dolphins going into the Baltimore game were 1 win away from needing 3 home wins to get to the Super Bowl. What an idiot I look like. They didn't even get 1 home win. They didn't even get 1 home game. What am I talking about? What an idiot I wind up looking like. This team has made me into an idiot. Obviously, I'm extremely disappointed in Tua. I'll get to that in a second. First, though, let me guys tell you about Sheets and Giggles since I mentioned. That's how I decided to watch the fourth quarter of the game, was on my Sheets and Giggles. SheetsGiggles.com. You get the best sleep of your life. What are we talking about here? The softest, coolest, most breathable sheets you've ever slept on. You're not going to have to... It's one less thing on your agenda that you got to worry about. You need new sheets? You're looking for more sheets? You're looking to get the best sleep of your life? SheetsGiggles.com. I got the pillowcases. I got the blankets. I got the comforter. It's my favorite comforter. I have a eucalyptus pillow I sleep on, made from the wood of eucalyptus trees. That's right, my man Colin, founder and CEO of Sheets and Giggles. You know he's super pissed off and disappointed about the Dolphins. But he's still pumping out the softest, coolest, most breathable sheets that we've ever slept on. And when you go to SheetsGiggles.com, you're going to become one of over 100,000 Americans who are sleeping on Sheets and Giggles and never turning back. SheetsGiggles.com. Use promo code ZASLOW. SheetsGiggles.com. Promo code ZASLOW. Get the best sleep of your life. Now, obviously, well, I guess not obviously. You may say, oh, ZASLOW, you're a Tua defender. No, I'm fair. I'm very fair. I'm a fan of Tua. But I'm extremely disappointed in him. You got to be fair. At this point, and yes, we were getting to a place this season. All right, we're approaching the final 3 games. Tua doesn't have that signature win. But, it's one of those cases where, all right, he can't win the big game or he can't perform big in the big game until he does. It was well after Peyton Manning's fourth year in the NFL that we were talking about he can't win the big game until he does. And I'm not comparing Tua and Peyton Manning, but the point is, I did believe, that Tua is good enough to win in big spots. But now, we're at the point, you don't care about hearing from Tua anymore about all the confidence he has in himself. That's a go-to line for Tua, right? All the confidence in the world in himself and his ability. Those are empty words now. Because you had the opportunity. You had the opportunity in Baltimore. You had the opportunity against Buffalo. You had the opportunity in Kansas City. Oh, for forever. With the opportunity to show everyone that you could play well, that you could play big in a big spot. So when Tua goes to his go-to line, I have all the confidence in the world in myself and my ability, those are empty words. I mean, when are we going to see it? So we're going to have to wait at least until next year now to see it. So as much as I like Tua, it's very fair to be critical of him. Now, and by the way, it wasn't just about him not coming up big. It was garbage offense against Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City. Now, I'm not getting rid of him. Like, what kind of ridiculousness is that? See, I'm okay with you guys being super critical of Tua now at this point. But getting rid of him, and what? And what? What are you doing? What other option is there? Now we got to have a real conversation about the money and the contract, and maybe even they just let him play out the fifth year. Maybe they don't give him a contract. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Tua may be upset about that, but you signed the deal for 5 years. There's nothing in that deal that says you can't play the fifth year without a new contract. Like, they may just have him played out. Nothing wrong with that. But while I sit here and tell you what other option do the Dolphins have at quarterback, Tua's got a long way to go. There's no defending it now at this point. It's going to take a lot to get this fan base back on his side. Saturday night was extremely damaging for Tua and his reputation here among the Dolphin fan. If I'm sitting here and telling you, I don't believe it until I see it. See, that was blind faith. But I can recognize that I had blind faith with Tua. Now, I gotta see it to believe it. And it's a total waste of his health. Because we could talk about this defense and how they had no shot to win the Super Bowl this shorthanded, which they didn't. I think they could have won the game this weekend, but the Super Bowl, no shot. But there's no excuse for what we've seen or what we haven't seen from this offense the last 3 weeks in big spots. No excuse. And you're not going to be able to trust that Tua can get it done in a big spot until he does. I had blind faith. I had blind faith previously. I can't have blind faith anymore. Now, there's been too much proof, or at least not enough evidence to show that he can do it. I'm not saying he can't, but I gotta see it. I can't just think it's gonna happen because I like him. And because of what I've seen him do to the shit teams in the regular season. We get to a place where you're the franchise quarterback. You're the number 5 overall pick in the draft. It's been 4 years now in the league. You led the NFL in passing. You gotta win a big game. And he hasn't done it yet. So are they gonna pay him like a franchise quarterback? I don't know what they're gonna do there, man. This is a very, very tricky spot for the Dolphins. And think about everything else wasted this year. Tua's health. That was the biggest thing going into the season, right? Tua's health was wasted. Started all 17 games. Didn't miss a single snap because of injury. Wasted. Tyreek Hill's MVP caliber season. Wasted. And as far as the division goes, a Buffalo Bills team that was down, seemingly down and out at 6-6. A lot was wasted this season. And what's happening with the Detroit Lions right now, and we're going to get to our NFL rundown in a few minutes here. What's happening with the Detroit Lions should have been the Dolphins before they blew that game to Tennessee. What I mean by that is the Lions, by virtue of Dallas losing, the Lions are now hosting 2 playoff games. And they are looking great for a potential NFC Championship game appearance. That should have been the Dolphins. The only positive to take from this weekend is the Dolphins now, as a result of yesterday, the Dolphins weren't the most embarrassing story of Super Wildcard Weekend. Not even close, because the Cowboys are. You go turn on your television. Actually, on my television right now, they're talking about the Dolphins. Was Saturday more about Dolphins or Chiefs? But the main story, and I think it was more about Dolphins, because I don't think the Chiefs are any good, and we're going to see it next week. The Dolphins, who were a great offense for most of the season, and they scored just 7 points in a wild card game. That game is more about the Dolphins losing than it is the Chiefs winning. I'm sorry, that's easy for me. But the most embarrassing story, hey, Dolphin fan, give a high five to the Cowboys. The Cowboys are by far the most embarrassing story of the weekend. So the Dolphins get a little bit of a reprieve in that regard. Let me tell you about the official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0, Johnny Cuba. You know how we enjoy the Dolphin playoff game. Remember, notice I didn't say plural, not games, game, singular. But now they're done, so it's all about the Heat. It's all about the Panthers. And how do we get down? With a nice ice-cold Johnny Cuba in our hand. I'm sitting on the couch in the ZASLOW Mansion family room in my underwear, holding a Johnny Cuba, enjoying the official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. That's right, Johnny Cuba, European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. Pick up a six-pack of Johnny Cuba for yourself, your local Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Most delicious beer out there. I've been telling you about Johnny Cuba for a year now. I don't mess around with any crap beer. I got the most delicious beer. Johnny Cuba. Make sure you always drink responsibly. And of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo.